Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something really fascinating. I want you to put on your academic hats because I'm going to step into the role of your economics professor to deconstruct a bit of a ghost story, the myth of the perfect market. Together we're going to explore an economic theory that is foundational, incredibly structured, and entirely imaginary.
Consider this paradox, taken straight from our core economic textbooks. Perfect competition is a myth. It is the most ideal market structure, which is hardly found in the real world. Let that sink in for a second. We are literally about to spend our time rigorously defining a world that does not exist. Why on earth would economists spend so much time obsessing over a complete fantasy?
Well, to answer that, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by unpacking the perfect market myth. Then we'll nail down the core definition. From there, we'll map out the 6 mandatory market features, and finally, we'll wrap up with why this myth actually matters. All right, part 1, the perfect market myth. So, I want you to imagine an absolutely flawless economy. Zero friction, no monopolies, no secret backroom advantages. This myth is the base for all other market structures. Even though perfect competition is an ideal you'll hardly ever find in the real world, it is the crucial, necessary baseline. Think of it like a physicist studying a frictionless vacuum, right? You're never going to encounter a frictionless vacuum in your everyday life, but you absolutely need that theoretical extreme to measure and actually understand every other real-world environment. That's what this is.
Moving on to part 2, the core definition. So, what exactly are we talking about here? By definition, perfect competition is a market structure with a large number of producers producing a homogeneous product so that no individual firm can influence the price. Now, I want you to really zero in on 2 things there: homogeneous product and the sheer inability of a single firm to influence the price. Those are the absolute bedrock of this theory. To really understand this, let's contrast a price taker with a price maker. In our perfect market, a firm has exactly 0 market power. Their demand curve is perfectly elastic. It's just a totally flat, horizontal line on a graph. If they try to charge literally 1 penny more than the market rate, their sales instantly drop to absolute 0. Contrast that with a price maker like a monopolist, who operates with high market power and can actively dictate the price. In perfect competition, you don't dictate a thing. You just take the price the market hands you, period. Let's get into the mechanics. Part 3, the 6 market features. We are going to build this perfect world pillar by pillar. And feature number 1 relies on a massive 0-0 market influence. We're talking about a wildly large number of buyers and sellers. There are so many participants that an individual firm produces such a microscopic sliver of the total market output that changing its supply has exactly 0 effect on the market price. None. And this actually works both ways. No single buyer can influence the price by changing their demand either, because they're buying such a negligible fraction of the total output. Feature 2 is the homogeneous product. Under perfect competition, every single product from every single firm is completely identical. And I don't just mean physically identical in traits like quality, size, or color. It goes way deeper than that. Even environmental factors like the location of the seller, their reputation, or the credit facilities they offer, they are exact perfect substitutes. The direct implication here is that because everything is functionally identical, a single uniform price rules the entire market. Brand loyalty is totally non-existent here. Which brings us to feature 3, freedom of entry and exit. This market naturally, almost magically, regulates itself. There are absolutely no legal, natural, or man-made blocks. If existing firms start raking in abnormal profits, new entrepreneurs see that, right? And they rush in. That new entry boosts the total market supply, which inevitably drags prices right back down until those abnormal profits are completely wiped out. On the flip side, if firms are taking losses, they're free to just pack up and exit. Supply shrinks, prices rise back up, and the surviving firms return to making just normal, long-run profits. It's a perfect balancing act. Now, feature 4 is perfect mobility of resources. This is kind of the invisible machinery that makes all that free entry and exit we just talked about actually structurally possible. Factors of production, whether we're talking labor, raw materials, or capital, they can switch from one use to another and from one firm to another instantly. There is no friction. There are no restrictions stopping resources from flowing exactly where they're needed at any given second. For feature 5, let me ask you a rhetorical question. Would you pay a higher price if you knew exactly what every other seller was charging? Well, of course you wouldn't. That's the assumption of perfect knowledge. Consumers, firms, and resource owners know all market conditions perfectly. Buyers will never pay a cent more than the prevailing price, and sellers will never sell for a cent less. And it even applies to production. Every firm has perfect knowledge of all available production techniques, which means, mathematically, every single firm has identical per-unit costs of production.
And that brings us to our final pillar, feature 6, which gives us another big zero, the absence of transport cost. Zero shipping fees are incurred by buyers or sellers. Why is this so incredibly mandatory? Well, think about it. If you had to add transport costs to the price of these identical goods, final prices would start varying based on geography, right? So to preserve that completely uniform single price across the entire economy, transportation must, theoretically, cost absolutely nothing. All right, wrapping things up with part 4, why the myth matters. So let's quickly lock this in. Consider this your final study guide. 1. Large numbers guarantee everyone is a price taker. 2. Homogeneous products mean utterly identical physical and environmental traits. 3. Free entry and exit ensure the market always snaps back to normal long-run profits. 4. Perfect mobility means instant resource switching. 5. Perfect knowledge guarantees uniform market conditions and production costs. And 6. No transport costs means zero shipping fees to keep those prices perfectly uniform across the board. These 6 interlocking rules, that's what creates the perfect market structure.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. This myth is our lens for analyzing imperfection. By rigorously defining this absolute theoretical extreme, economists finally have a perfect measuring stick. We can now effectively evaluate exactly how real-world markets deviate from this perfection. When we look at a monopoly with its closed entry and massive market power, or an oligopoly with its kinked demand curves and intense rivalries, we understand exactly why they behave the way they do, specifically because we know exactly what a perfect market looks like. I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought that connects this classic 19th century theory directly to the smartphones sitting in your pocket right now. As digital markets completely eliminate geographical barriers, slash transport costs to basically nothing, and give us near-perfect information and price comparison at the tap of a screen, how close are we actually getting to this mythical perfect competition? Are we actually inching closer to the myth becoming reality? Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you're shopping online. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the fascinating structures that drive our world.